All right, don't go anywhere, guys. We still have another couple of portions of our program. I know that we're running just a little bit late, so I'm going to keep my portion just a bit shorter. And I want to be speaking about, as we heard so many wonderful things about the Mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim, some of the practical things, because sometimes, some of us are doing Netilat Yadayim, some of us may not be doing Netilat Yadayim. Now we know that there's Netilat Yadayim that happens when we wake up in the morning, the first Netillah that we do, which is different than the Netilat Yadayim that we do before we eat bread. Now, after we eat bread, it's not Netilat Yadayim, but it's Mayim Acharonim. It's also connected to water. There's a very, very big significance. I want to just quickly explain the method of doing Netilat Yadayim, so that for those of us that are already doing it, and maybe we're not necessarily doing it the 100% correct way, we can. And for those of us that aren't necessarily doing it, perhaps we'll consider doing it, even if it's only just the Netilat Yadayim in the morning, or, so on and so forth. So to show you, I'm just going to take out here, this is the raffle that we're going to do for today, the 100% pure copper cup. And I'm going to explain to you also, based on what the Rebbetzin was saying, the connection between what she was saying and copper and nechoshet. And we're going to take a look at just a few sources. So first off, with Netilat Yadayim itself, when we do Netilat Yadayim, the proper way to do it, and again, this is on the website, on the netilat.com website, in case you want to be able to take a look at it afterwards, this information is also there. You fill the cup and fill it. No, I want to just put a little, I have to run. Take the extra 30 seconds. It's all good. This is beracha. We all want beracha. That's what we're doing in our life. We fill the cup fully with water and with our right hand, and then we pass the cup to our left hand. The way to remember is always the passing always goes from right to left. But if you want to pass back from your left to your right, just always remember, put it down and then pick it back up with your right. So you fill it up with your right hand. After you fill it up with your right hand, you pass it to your left and you pour it on the right. The right comes first. That's the strong hand. Even if you are a lefty, it doesn't make a difference. It goes on to the right. You then put the cup down and pick it up with your right hand and then pour on your left. Again, you can always pass. The rule is you can always pass from right to left. Don't pass from left to right. When you want to pass from left to right, put it down and then you pick it back up, and so on and so forth. And you do this 3 times on the right, 3 times on the left. Now, somebody asked if we could get this written down. Great question. I'm going to put over here for you a link, okay, onto the website. And I'm just going to, so that you can actually take a look at this even afterwards and understand the exact directions of how to do Netillah. Best way, like I said, to remember is you start doing Netillah on your right hand. You always fill. You do the mitzvah with your right. So you're filling with your right. You first pour onto your right. So you have to pass to your left. And then when you want to move it to the next hand, you have to always pass. You have to always pick it up with your right. Don't pass from your left to your right, but pass from your right to your left. So in the morning, we rotate 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Before we have bread, and like the Rebbetzin said, there are different minhagim. For example, I know that the Sephardic minhag is you're doing it 6 times. You do 3 on one hand before bread, and then 3 on the other. 3 on the right first, and then 3 on the left. There are those that do it only 4 times, meaning 2 on the right and 2 on the left. It really will vary based on your minhag. With the bread, again, we fill it up with our right, pass to our left, 3 on the right, put it down, pick it up, 3 on the left. Now, after you actually wash your hands, this is very important. It's very important. You don't want to dry your hands and then say the beracha, because it is actually beracha labatala. You take your hands, you can take the water, you just can put them together to take the water off your hands, and you hold them in front of you. Again, like we said earlier, you want to see them. And again, you could even lift them up if you want. So we're talking about the concept of emunah, right? Above our logic. And you look at them, and that's how you say the beracha while they're still wet. Only after you say the beracha, and saying the beracha with kavanah, I'm smiling. Wow, I'm bringing beracha to my hands. I'm bringing beracha into my life. Then is when you dry your hands. This is the proper way to do Netilat Yadayim. Like I said, it's on that link. And if you are, again, it's about practicing it. Once you practice doing it, one person told me, it's so confusing, my right, my left. Once you practice it, it becomes second nature to you. Also, when we get into the routine of doing something, oftentimes, right, when you're used to doing something all the time, what happens? You forget to put that kavanah in. So the fact that you're going to be introducing the proper way to do it is actually good. You know why? Because it's going to make you think for a second. And like I said, fill it with water. And where should the water go? Not here. This is not Tisha B'Av, okay? We have to fill it over here. Go to your top of your hand. Why the hands? Guys, all of our asiyah, all of the things that we do in our life comes from here. Whether it's taking care of our children or cooking or working, all of the asiyah, our ability to actually do, to bring into the world, to create, comes from our hands. So when our hands are purified and sanctified, we bring that purity and sanctification into everything we touch. Guys, doing Netillah elevates our hands, just like when we say a beracha on something, we elevate it to a level of kedusha. And so when we do Netillah, we're bringing that kedusha into our hands. And now everything that we're going to touch in our day, we're placing that spiritual, placing that kedusha into it. This is a huge, huge concept. So why nechoshet? I said, Orly, okay, you do a copper cup. What's the concept of copper? I don't understand what's going on over here with this nechoshet. There's a very, very, very specific reason. Guys, look in the Torah. Look at the sources in the Torah. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Cousin of mine, how did this come to be? I started this company back in 2017. Cousin of mine who lives in Israel reached out to me, said to me, Orly, I want your help. I said, okay, what are you doing? He says, I want to be able to create and to bring into Am Yisrael again 100% pure copper cup. So I said, tell me what's going on. He says, Orly, the level of this could be huge to be able to bring this, the concept of copper, of nechoshet and Netillah, back into the homes within Am Yisrael. So I said, why? What happened? So he told me, listen, I went to my rabbi and I was telling him I'm having a very difficult time with parnasah, having a really difficult time. And the rabbi told me, do Netillah. So I started laughing. I told the rabbi, I do Netillah. Like, what's the chidush over here? He says, no. Do it with 100% pure copper cup, not copper plated, not glossed, raw copper. That the inside of the cup is 100% pure raw copper. So he said, okay. And he went ahead and he tried finding a copper cup and he couldn't find one. The ones he did find were very, very, very insanely expensive and he couldn't find it. He found copper plated. He decided, you know what, I'm going to make one. I don't know whether I don't find it on the market. So he made one. And he started doing Netillah. And of course, he started asking the question, why did the rabbi tell me this? Like, why? Like, what's the chidush here? What's going on? And little by little, he started doing research into the connection between mayim and nechoshet, between water and copper. And what he found is that there's so many sources from Torah, from Kabbalah, that talk about this concept of nechoshet. Think about it for a moment. The Mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim was commanded by Hashem to Moshe, that the Kohanim would wash their hands before doing Avodat HaKodesh. And what was it that Hashem told Moshe to create? A kior. And what material
you see what I mean?
did Hashem tell Moshe to create a kior with? He said, nechoshet. He didn't tell him make it from gold, make it from silver. No. He said from copper. Now, another thing, Yam Shlomo Melech, when he created the Beit HaMikdash, he created Yam Shlomo, which was a copper basin that stood upon 12 copper calves. They were made of copper that the Kohanim would immerse themselves into before going to do Avodat HaKodesh. Again, what was the specifications in making it? Nechoshet. What is going on over here? What is the concept of nechoshet? Water, why? What happened? You see, copper is a natural antibacterial. It actually prevents the spread of germs. That's why in hospitals, they used to make doorknobs out of copper to prevent the spread of germs. It has very, very powerful effects and impacts. You can actually see loads of information about some of the concepts behind copper. It's a mineral that's found throughout the body. It actually helps your body make red blood cells, and it keeps nerve cells and your immune system healthy. It also forms collagen, which is a key part of bones and connective tissue. It helps the body absorb iron, which is extremely important. And your body needs copper to make energy. And it also reacts as an antioxidant. It reduces free radicals that can damage cells and also can damage DNA. These are just basic things about copper, not even going into too many of the details here. So what's the concept? Imagine a person who's doing Netillah. Now, what do we know? And the Rebbetzin actually touched on this a little bit. We know that we don't do Netillah because our hands are dirty. Okay. It's removing a spiritual impurity. It's not something that you can see. It's not something you can think logically. It's above logic. It's at the emunah portion. And so when we pour water into a cup, we know that water, mayim, is mayim chayim. Impurity, tum'ah, has the ability to cling to anything that's alive. When something is alive, it has the ability for impurity to attach itself to it. We know mayim is mayim chayim. It's alive. So if you pour water into a cup, like a regular cup. Now, this doesn't mean, and I'm going to say this, very important that I say this, this doesn't mean that if you don't do Netillah with a cup that's copper, doesn't mean that your Netillah is invalid. I'm going to say that again because it's extremely important. Okay. Now, you put water into a different cup. Mayim, the impurity is able to cling to the waters. And so when you're pouring the water itself, there's impurity that has been touched by the water. Copper, raw copper specifically, acts as a force field that prevents the impurity from actually touching the water. Copper itself acts as a force field. This is based on its properties. And so when you're pouring the water onto your hands, you're pouring pure waters onto your hands. This is the reason why Hashem chose the material of copper when commanding to make the kior from copper. Tremendous. And so each and every one of us have that ability. Now, what is more concepts behind copper? We know that Kabbalah tells us that copper has mystical qualities associated with good health, with fertility, livelihood, and purity. The Zohar states that silver represents chesed. It represents kindness. Gold represents power. But copper represents rachamim. It represents mercy. It's just a huge thing. There's so many more sources that I can go into with you. And again, loads of this information can be found directly on Netillah.com on the website so that you can learn more about the health benefits of copper, as well as the spiritual benefits of doing Netilat Yadayim with a copper cup. You can read all of those sources there.